Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Downtown Denver Partnership's first ever virtual Development Insider Tour. I want to start by thanking you all for your flexibility and patience. I know many of you were scheduled to tour Arapahoe Square in person this spring and again in June, and perhaps even attend a watch party today. And I wish for many reasons that we could have delivered those tours for you. But I'm also confident that we'll bring Arapahoe Square to life for you today. So today we will be touring 3 projects in the neighborhood. You'll first see a pre-recorded tour of each building or development site, and then we'll invite the development teams behind those projects to make any additional remarks and answer your specific questions that you might have about those projects. I want to start with just some background on the Arapahoe Square neighborhood itself. So Arapahoe Square is situated between the really high-dense high-rise developments of the commercial core and the lower density neighborhoods of Curtis Park and Five Points, and also borders the Ballpark and Uptown neighborhoods. And so despite this central location, Arapahoe Square has generally remained underutilized in comparison to its neighbors. That's really the result of the fact that in the 70s and the 80s, much of Arapahoe Square was cleared to serve as a parking reservoir for the commercial core. And many of those surface parking lots remain today, one of which will be the subject of one of our featured projects today. The remaining buildings in Arapahoe Square are both economically and architecturally diverse, and many social service providers are located in the neighborhood. The neighborhood is also very well connected via rail transit along Welton Street, which has attracted quite a bit of new residential development along that corridor, which we've actually toured in previous Development Insider tours. So given this underutilized potential, Arapahoe Square was specifically called out in the 2007 Downtown Area Plan as a priority project. And specifically, the goal was to redevelop Arapahoe Square as a cutting-edge, densely populated, and mixed-use area. As a result of the Downtown Area Plan recommendations, Arapahoe Square went through a rezoning in 2016, which created not only 2 new form-based zoning districts, but a design guideline document and review process to ensure compatible and high-quality development. Arapahoe Square is also home to a major portion of the planned 5280 trail, which will run along 21st Street, that will provide opportunities for increased tree canopy and green space, pedestrian and bike-friendly paths, and better connections to downtown's other great neighborhoods. And in recent years, sorry, I'm struggling with sharing the screen, but in recent years, we have seen some of the development activity envisioned by the Downtown Area Plan really kind of taking place. In the past 10 years, you can see on this map, the ground up development projects that have occurred in the neighborhood in those 10 years. And many of those, actually most of those, are multifamily residential projects. So today, we are highlighting 3 of the Arapahoe Square projects that are helping the neighborhood realize that vision as a mixed-use dynamic neighborhood. We're starting at 21st and Arapahoe for a look at the recently completed Buell Public Media Center. We'll then wind our way to Park Ave and Champa Street for a look at the Evolve Towers residential project that's in planning stages now and will transform one of those surface parking lots that I mentioned earlier. And then we'll travel right back down Park Ave to where it meets Arapahoe Street and Broadway for a look at the Asterisk event venue, which is a historic rehabilitation project that was completed late last year. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the video tour of the Buell Public Media Center. Please be thinking throughout that video tour of any questions you have for the development team. Please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, and we'll make sure those get to the development team who will join us live when the video is complete. So without further ado, let's go tour our first project.
Hi, I'm Amanda Mountain. I'm the president and CEO of Rocky Mountain Public Media, which includes Kuvo Jazz, Rocky Mountain PBS, and The Drop, a new hip-hop R&B station. We are the largest public media organization in the state and the largest membership organization in Colorado. We are standing here in the new Buell Public Media Center, which is 68,000 square feet, and it's housing over a dozen organizations coming together as a community media center to invite the public in to learn more about how media works and to be a part of it. About 8 years ago, Rocky Mountain PBS and Kuvo Jazz merged together, but we didn't have enough space to be in the same building. So 5 years ago, we started looking for a new home, and Mayor Hancock introduced us to what is now Arapahoe Square. So Arapahoe Square was really envisioned by the City and County of Denver as a residential hub, and still so central to downtown. And so that is what really drew us here, an anchor tenant to bring some identity, some amenity to the community. And we are really excited for all of the construction that's really going to be underway to bring people into downtown. And in partnership with the City and County of Denver, we'll have a community media center here where people can come in, take classes, and create their own content. So Triba Architects is our architect, and we worked with Wells Partnership as our owner's rep, Mortensen as our general contractor, and Listen Up is our technology provider. So it took really a village to build this beautiful home for Rocky Mountain Public Media. So the project is about $35 million, and we really did have to turn over every rock to find all the funding. Of course, philanthropy played a big role, including the lead gift from the Buell Foundation of $6 million. We also worked to bring new market tax credits to the project. Rose Urban Green Fund helped us, and that is what helped create the Community Media Center in partnership with the City and County of Denver. The Colorado Land Board and the land swap allowed us to gain access to this land, and we sold one of our 2 parcels, bringing in additional revenue, and really just hundreds of donors contributing to make this truly a community project. Yeah, we're in the Masterpiece Studio Theater. It seats 135, and it's a really easy space. All the technology is from Listen Up, and we don't need an engineer to operate the space because it's just as simple as pushing a button. So we are allowed to, or we can have film screenings and community conversations. It's just it's going to be an amazing space when the community can come back in, and we'll make this space available to other partners as well. All right, we're in the Bonfie Stanton Performance Studio, and this is where we have live performances. We've got built-in cameras that you can control with a smartphone and immediately stream what's happening in this room out onto the street, onto 21st. You can also see it online or on air in an instant. So we're really excited about not only the space, but the technology that will allow us to get our content out into the world. All right, we're on the rooftop at the Buell Public Media Center, right outside of the CoLab, which is made possible by the Gates Foundation. And it is 9 different media organizations experimenting with new collaborative ways of serving Coloradans with news and information. It's anchored by the Associated Press and includes organizations like the Colorado Sun, the Colorado News Collaborative, Colorado Media Project, Open Media Foundation, Chalkbeat, and others. So we are really excited to be forging the way here in Denver, Colorado, for the entire country to watch and follow. Well, the Buell Public Media Center would not have been possible without Downtown Denver Partnership's leadership and partnership, and we are so glad that you're all a part of it. We cannot wait to invite you here in person to see the center, because it is a part of Colorado and a part of downtown Denver that belongs to you too. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you in person soon.
That was great. That was an incredible overview of the Buell Public Media Center. Thank you, Amanda, for taking the time to film that tour with us. I'd like to invite Amanda Mountain from Rocky Mountain PBS, as well as Dave Espinosa from Mortensen, to join us live. And Amanda and Dave, is there anything we didn't capture on video that you'd like to speak to before we open it up to question and answer from our audience today?
Well, you know, my gratitude for Dave was not adequately conveyed. I would give him my firstborn if I didn't love her so much. But Mortensen is really such an integral partner in making this project a reality. So I'm glad to be here with you all and with Dave.
Thank you, Amanda. The feeling is mutual. I would want to just, add, the partnership that we created from the beginning with Rocky Mountain Public Media, Amanda's team, and how they actually team came as a cohesive team to design and build. I think one thing that was not necessarily captured, this was a design build project, which helped expedite the construction process and get us in the ground quicker, so we could facilitate the construction of the project for Rocky Mountain Public Media. So that was a really good collaboration between Triba, our partners with Listen Up, and the rest of the team, the design team.
That's great. And Dave, since we have you, any stories you can share, or any challenges with the construction, anything about the design or construction that was particularly challenging? And I'm not asking a hot button question, but surely there's something.
These type of projects are to me, are the projects that are super fun. So challenges, they come and go. But obviously building in an urban setting, zero lot line was a challenge. And making sure that we're mindful of the people, the residential neighbors that we had, was also a really good challenge. And one that we from the beginning we identified, so we make sure that we made friends with our neighbors to make sure that we were understanding of their needs as we were continuing to evolve during the construction process. Everything else we kind of overcome, their challenges that arise, and we figure them out.
That's great. So we have a question from the audience. Amanda, I think you spoke a little bit to this on the video, but want to elaborate on, what is the opportunity for other community nonprofits to be able to use some of those facilities, in particular the media and presentation room, but also just kind of generally throughout the building?
Yeah, so all together in the building, we have 8 different studios, plus we have event space, meeting space, rooftop space. You got a glimpse of all of that in the tour, but it really comes to life, as you can imagine, when you're there in person and can explore. So our goal and intent is to make as many of these spaces as possible available to the nonprofit community in particular, and then the broader community as well. So once we're all able to come back in a safe way, we will we'll roll out all of these spaces to the community and make them available for booking. And we're really hopeful that it can become a community center of sorts. If I could also just add, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead, Amanda.
Building off of Dave's comment about the design build, I just wanted to say that we finished construction in the first kind of quarter of COVID. And so it was a really scary time as a client to not know if we were going to be able to continue construction, stay on time, stay on budget. And Mortensen and all of our team was able to rally and create a safe environment, and in the midst of any challenge that you could possibly imagine, keep us on time and on budget. And so I think a large part of that is streamlining the relationships to get the project done as efficiently as possible. So that design build arrangement really came into play in the final days of the project as well.
Yeah, that was one of the challenges as we were finishing up the building, how we were going to manage, this new way to build, because we were trying 6-foot spacing as we were finishing up concrete. Finishing up the exterior of the building, we had to have masks, we had to have all these new PPE, these new regulations, working that into our schedule. That was definitely a challenge. But again, it was one that everybody had the same vision and same goal in mind. We were all pulling together to make sure that the building was finished when it needed to be finished.
That's great. It's a great tale of partnership, I think. And Amanda, I want to ask you about the space, a little bit more about the space that we see in Dave's background. So we get this excellent view of the Central Business District. And I know from our conversation when we recorded the tour originally that that space in particular, the interior that kind of is adjacent to that outdoor deck, changed uses, right? And evolved from how it was originally intended. Can you talk a little bit about how that space evolved and where that space is heading?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say that, like every big project, we started with dreams for our contingency, but because the budget was so well managed by our partners, we were able to make a lot of that contingency a reality. And so when we started the project, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to afford to finish a rooftop deck. We actually hadn't planned on a total finish on the 3rd floor. It was really just going to be finished to core and shell, and we'd build out at a later date. But we were able to match the right programming with that space to bring some additional funding that allowed us to finish up that third floor in a way that is a true incubator for local journalism. And there's nothing else like it in the country. So we're really proud to have downtown Denver be the home of true experimentation that hopefully will expand local journalism and be a model for others for how to share resources and expand local trusted news and information to other states in addition to Colorado.
That's great. So that's, that's exactly the type of thing that it sounds like you were not able to accommodate in your old facility. And I'd love to, again, I think that I'd love to elaborate on what you mentioned about the land swap during the video. If you could just talk a little bit more about kind of what was housed within your old facility, what were you able to, or I guess what were your limits there, and then how did that land swap kind of come to fruition and allow you to locate in Arapahoe Square?
So our building was on Bannock and 12th. And so we were in the Golden Triangle neighborhood, and the building itself was designed as a cement box. You really weren't meant to be able to see in and know what was going on. And it was a place that was it was designed for security, not necessarily designed for engagement. So our new facility really allowed us to design a secure facility with engagement as the primary driver. So you're really invited in to participate in a way that was really not possible in our prior facility. But we did own the building and the adjacent parking lot. And so when we were looking at other places to go, we had looked at a lot of different sites that have since been developed. But this particular site at 21st and Arapahoe was really exciting that we could be a part of building a neighborhood identity. We could be on the 5280 loop that we know is going to be a really exciting place to be. And we could be within Coors Field in a way that would give us that excitement and energy. So when we saw the site, it was at the time owned by the Colorado Land Board, who over a series of conversations ultimately approved swapping the land. So we exchanged our 2 parcels in the Golden Triangle neighborhood for 2 parcels in Arapahoe Square. We sold one of them to a high density housing developer, and then we developed the other parcel.
That's great. It's an incredible opportunity for you to be located in such a central location with everything that's going on, as you said. So Dave, I want to hear a little bit more about, this partnership for Mortensen. Is this typical for you to partner with a cultural institution? Do you typically work more with commercial clients, and how are those two, how are those two clients different?
So specifically for me and Mortensen, we like to partner up with clients like Rocky Mountain Public Media, and we have in the past. I actually finished 2 other nonprofit projects this year, and this is a unique partnership because we can bring our expertise as far as how to build, how to do the design build process. I believe we actually brought in some of our development experts during the transaction of the adjacent parking lot. To help provide that expertise to Amanda and her team so they can focus on what's important, which is, at that point, was raising the money. In addition to that, we also brought in some of our augmented reality and virtual reality that was utilized during the Capitol campaign to bring excitement to the building as it was being built. So yeah, I mean, these are, personally, I'm selfish that I'm actually get to work in these type of projects because they're very unique and they don't happen all the time. I mean, not every day you're building a radio station and a TV station and a hub for media that is enhancing our landscape in our city and that it's unique to our country. So yes, those are really unique opportunities that we seek and partnerships that we seek.
That's great. Thank you. I think that partnership piece is so key, in addition to kind of the uniqueness of the land swap. I think, again, that partnership you spoke to, Dave, allowing Amanda and her team to focus on the fundraising that is obviously incredibly key to making a project like this come to reality. It's just an amazing example of division of labor and kind of focusing on your comparative competencies. So we are so excited to see the Buell Public Media Center in Arapahoe Square. I think, as I mentioned, a lot of the development we've seen in this neighborhood has been multifamily residential, which in and of itself is absolutely fantastic. But to truly kind of see this district transform as a mixed use neighborhood, we need to see cultural and commercial development as well. So we are so happy to see Buell Public Media Center. Again, I wish we could have been there on a hard hat tour this spring, but I'm happy that we got to see the completed project. And I think that's a little bit of a silver lining, that we got to see this beautiful building in its final state. So thank you both again for being with us and for answering some questions today. So I am from here, as I said, we were going to start at 21st and Arapahoe, Buell Public Media Center. Now we're going to make our way to Park Ave in Champa and look at what is currently a surface parking lot that has some really exciting plans from Ubuntu partners for some multifamily residential there as well. So we are going to look at that project and then bring on that development team.
Hi, I'm Karina Christensen. I'm with one of the founding members of Ubuntu Partners. We're standing on our project site of the Evolve Towers, which we closed on the land in November, and we are excited about developing a multifamily project with two 23-story towers here in Arapahoe Square. So Patricia and myself started a company about 2.5 years ago. It's a 100% woman-owned development company. We actually met in South Africa, and Ubuntu in South African means community. And we're really passionate about building something that enhances our community, not just from an architectural standpoint, but also brings some energy into this community. So Arapahoe Square is AS 12+, which basically means you can go to 110 feet and 12 stories. However, if you choose to go with the point tower design, which means it's lighter on top, you're allowed to go to 250 stories. And even though that is not as efficient as building 14 stories in a block, we chose to do that. And it allowed us to do two skinny towers on top of that 5-foot podium up to the 250 feet. We hired a European design architect called Sandspont. They're actually out of Mexico and Barcelona. And what they specialize in is high-rise, very dense, sort of European-style apartments. And we knew that they could provide to us the kind of design that we were looking for. But Oz Architecture here in town, fantastic partners, are our architect of record. So the way we've approached it is to make sure that we have the ground level activated with things that the neighborhood would want. We're taking over the whole corner, and on the corner will be our bodega, sort of a little retail space. Think New York corner 7-Eleven, and on both sides of both Park and Champa will be offices / retail. And then the 5-foot podium, 5-story podium is right behind us, where there will be lots of greenery around it to make sure that it doesn't look very concretey. And then the towers behind us will be mostly glass and have a super cool superstructure over it that is a design element, but also helps with the sustainability of the building, as it allows the sun to be reflected and not cause a lot of heat buildup. So just very much like along here, we have a lot of trees. We're going to be planting a lot of trees on both Park and Champa, plus a green strip so that pedestrians feel safe and don't feel like they're walking right around the street. And then here's the alley I mentioned earlier, that all access will be for cars. So in and out into the garage, in and out, the dumpsters are coming in here to pick up the garbage. The loading dock for when you're moving in will be right through this alley here. And on the south side, you will have incredible views of downtown. The team as a whole is set, and we're ready, like just anxious to go. So we're looking at completion in 2023. Thanks for coming on the tour with us today and previewing our building. I cannot wait to show it to you when it's done.
Thank you, Karina. That is such an exciting project. It's a beautiful design, really transforming, again, what's really just a surface parking lot into this beautiful, dense residential building. So we're so excited to see that. Is there anything else you want to add that maybe we didn't capture in the video before we open it to question and answer?
Well, I would love to. We just met with the design advisory board this morning and our design was approved. So today is a big day for us and we're super excited.
That's great to hear. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. And just for our attendees to know, we now also have Patricia Watson, who's a co-founder and partner with Karina, as well as Nate Jenkins from Oz Architecture. And so I actually wanted to ask you about that design review process, because that is new. As I mentioned, that came out of kind of that 2016 process where there was a new, two new form-based zoning districts for the neighborhood, as well as this design review board and design review guidelines. So tell us a little bit more about what it means to go through that design review process, which really kind of happens in parallel with the zoning process.
It does, and I'm going to ask Nate to jump in here because technically speaking, he has a lot more experience with that. But I can speak from our experience. We were sort of the guinea pigs of this new process, and we are the first ones to use the point tower design overlay. So the design advisory board was new to this, just as we were, and so it was an interesting process. I have to say the design advisory board, and I don't know how many of you noticed, but it's comprised of a lot of design professionals, architects, developers, investors, so a very professional board. They were great to work with. But I think we all were trying to figure out how much did we have to provide to the board, how much, how little, how much, how is this point tower going to go over? And so it was an exciting experience for us. One of the things that we did do from the very beginning, and I noticed somebody in the chat box had mentioned our neighbors, on one of the first rounds that we had with the design advisory board was in February, and we made sure to reach out to our Curtis Park neighbors. As you know, that is a historic neighborhood, and we wanted to make sure that our neighbors, we provided something that they could be proud of and that they could rally around, and that we also addressed some of the needs that they had for their neighborhood. We know it is a food desert. We know that there aren't a lot of services like dentists and dry cleaners. So we reached out to them when we first started designing and invited them to the Oz offices, and the Curtis Park neighborhood came and really provided some great input in what they thought. And at our first design review board meeting in person in February, the neighbors actually showed up and were very supportive of our project. Nate, I think you can speak a little bit more to the actual procedural differences that we had to go through, because this process was the first time in this. So, I don't know it any different, but I'm sure you have some more input to that.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. Nate Jenkins, Oz. Yeah, still feeling the excitement of being approved for design. What was in essence the meeting for design detail review today. It has been quite a journey. We had our first meeting with the Arapahoe Square Design Advisory Board, Downtown Denver Design Advisory Board, about a year ago, and then had a follow-up to that. We were not approved upon the initial meeting, where we did learn, I think, through some bumps and bruises of being, as Karina has well put it, the guinea pigs. I don't know if neither ourselves nor the board knew how to take that first meeting, and so there was a bit of a trial by fire. We put out a lot of information there. The reality is that the design of the building at that time was aspirational, and
I think we lost you, Nate. All right, we'll give Nate a minute. And Karina and Patricia, I have a question for you. You know, I know that you are, you know, raising funds now, kind of looking for investors and potentially for a loan as well. Maybe talk a little bit about how is the market viewing Denver right now, given where we are with this pandemic. You know, clearly things are moving forward with your project, which is fantastic to hear, but kind of what's the overall outlook on Denver as well as this type of project in this neighborhood?
You know, it's been really, and I'm going to let Patricia jump in anytime she wants to. There were, you know, 3 months during this pandemic when we first got into the pandemic where we just didn't know what was going to happen. We had been approved for the massing and concept design. We had a potential co-developer on board, and at that point we were like, you know, everything shut down. Unfortunately, our potential co-developer had 2 other projects that went sideways, so he had to back out. So Patricia and I have been moving this project forward by ourselves. And as we're coming out of this, the market has been incredibly supportive in the last couple of months, especially as we're getting closer to getting our SDP approval. Several projects have fallen by the wayside that are multifamily, and people want to be in Denver. So the capital markets, not necessarily in Denver, but from the coast, are super excited and very bullish on Denver. They're looking at this for, you know, for the next 5 years. And we know we are one of those cities that people right now are escaping to, right? They're leaving the coast, they're coming to Denver, they want to live downtown. All the things that Amanda mentioned earlier about the 5280 loop and why she loves where she is. That's exactly why we are where we are, because I think that it is such a dynamic location, and we are starting to get a lot of interest, and we are evaluating several potential partners as we're speaking, and we're very excited about moving this forward. And Patricia, feel free to comment. Oh. I think you need to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would also add to that because we're using a very innovative building methodology for this structure, it has significant cost savings associated with it, and that helps our pro forma to be very compelling. I think our total cost of construction will be somewhere between 15 and 20% lower than it would be for a traditional cast-in-place construction with traditional means and methods of construction for a building of this type. And that has been both compelling on the cost of construction as well as the time frame for construction. So this type of building can be constructed about 6 months more quickly with top-down construction, which is engineered by Thornton Tomasetti and is a integrated supply chain methodology of construction that's implemented by TGE top-down. And so we will be the first building in Colorado to do this.
That's super exciting. Looks like we have Nate back. I do want to ask one question, and we can hear you, which is great. One question from the audience, and then I think we'll have Nate pick up where he left off. Will there be any affordable units?
No, there is not. There was no affordable component required. We're paying the impact fee, but we've been, from day one, we wanted to build an attainable project. And so we have units that are going to be, they're not going to be on the affordability scale, but they're going to be attainable for someone who lives downtown and works downtown. And that has been our focus from day one. We don't need another luxury building. We need places where people can actually afford to live. And that's what we're working towards.
That's great. Thank you. And then we just to go back to Patricia, you're mentioning of top-down construction. We have a question just for some clarification on what that actually means.
Sure. Is there a specific question or just a general
explanation? Just what is top-down construction?
Yeah, so top-down construction is a type of construction that provides for column-free construction of a building plate. The entire building is constructed literally at grade. Each floor, so the cores of the building are constructed first with slip form, and once those are in place, there's a platform that's built at grade, and each floor of the building is constructed and then hydraulically lifted into place and connected to the core of the building. So you will actually see the cores go up first, and then the top floor of the building will be raised to the 23rd floor and locked in place, and then the next floor will go up underneath it. So it allows for a lot more modularization, significantly less concrete and steel are used. It's much faster. It's much safer for the construction industry employees. And the history of it is that the design and the implementation of that process involves a significantly lower risk of construction defects in the construction of the project.
That's great. And just to clarify, because the question came up, I think you mentioned that will move the project timeline about 6 months ahead. Is that right?
Yeah, so instead of a traditional cast in place concrete building of this type, which would probably be 24 to 26 months, we have a time frame from TGE of 18 months for this.
Great. And given that it's kind of related to this topic, again, Nate, I'm going to get back to you, but I do want to ask this question from an audience or from an attendee. What's your outlook on condos? Do you think that's something that downtown can get back to at this point?
You know, I'm going to speak to that. I think that we need them badly. And as most of you know, we started out wanting to build condos. Unfortunately, the capital markets at this point are not willing to invest in a large size condo project due to the exposure to the builder defect laws. And you will see smaller condo projects going up, but I don't think you'll see another one going up for 300 and plus until some of the laws are being changed in this country and in Colorado, unfortunately.
Thank you. Yeah, so much of it is really dependent on what the capital markets are demanding, right? And have to be responsive to that. Nate, I want to pick up where you left off. So I think we can hear you now. We have you back. So thank you.
My complete apologies. That has not happened to me in all of these strange remote times.
No problem.
So, appreciate everybody paying the attention that they are to these projects. Of course, and now I'm echoing on my end. Am I sharing my screen, or what's the thought here? Because would you guys like that?
Sure. If you, yeah.
Okay,
if
wonderful.
Something you'd like to share, please feel free.
Well, first and foremost, I think you'll see a project that is consistent with what Karina and Patricia have presented to you all before. It's just a little bit more refined and advanced in its conceptualization. So obviously we've got what is a gateway project into downtown, south of Parks and Park Avenue. And this particular perspective, it's looking south and east more.
Nate, I'm going to interrupt because we don't actually see your screen.
Okay, sorry.
There we go. Perfect.
Truly.
These are the times we live in.
It's some days I'm golden and some days I'm a bronze.
I hear you.
All right,
this looks great though.
Okay, so you all are familiar with what we have been presenting architecturally. We believe it's a unique, thoughtful, organic in some respects, architectural solution that is also tasteful and refined, that considers the user, but also the context of within which it sits. So hopefully you see that in what's presented. We've tried to present a 360-degree building, which is one of the key points of advancement that we have had since our original kind of mass and context approval that occurred in late February. I can address sort of where that refinement has occurred, but for the most part, it's occurred on the south side, the side that fronts really all of downtown Denver. Before we were facing or presenting an exterior core that ran the entire face. Well, because of the top-down methodology, we're able to move those cores to the inside of the footprint and thereby concealing it and creating a much more active and transparent facade. This is the view from Park and Champa. You see a really active street face. We've created a number of areas where we are imagining outdoor seating, retracted storefront, operable storefront. This is the bodega area that Karina had mentioned. And then sort of in concert with that, in the first 5 floors, the 4 floors above the ground floor, are wrapped, is basically our wrapped parking structure, wrapped with multifamily space, around 70% of the perimeter on the streets. And then the other components that comprise that podium are the lobby of those sort of lower lying floors, and then and really the demarcation of the residential entry, and then the parking garage is screened and shielding the cars within with some fairly thoughtful architecture.
And I just want to
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Nate. I was going to pipe up when you were mentioning the 360-degree building. For people that don't know what that is, there is no back to this building or side. You know how a lot of buildings are being built planning that there's a back to it because there might be another building that's going to be built next to it. This building is beautiful from all four sides. There is no side that we said is the back or the side or the front. I mean, the front is definitely slightly nicer, but this is the back side of the building. So it looks good all 360 degrees.
And this is that south orientation that I mentioned earlier. So I don't want to bore folks, but we could dive into the overall presentation of that we gave to the Design Advisory Board today.
So
Yeah.
Nate, I don't know that we need to go into that level of detail, but we do have some questions about parking ratio and number of units as well as the unit mix. Maybe we can start there.
Yep.
Sure.
Do you want to go ahead, Nate?
No, please, Karina, go ahead.
Okay. So we're required to have a 75% parking ratio, and the parking ratio is not per bedroom, but it's per unit. And we are meeting that requirement. We're not going over at this point. We're right at 75%. So I think right now we're looking at 257 units or something, 257 parking spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, thank you.
330 units.
Yeah, and 331 units.
Great. And we have a question about first of all, there was a comment about how beautiful these buildings are, which I would agree. I think they really are spectacular. What about energy efficiency? That might be a question for Nate.
Sure. Well, we've got pretty lofty expectations for this building. You know, we're striking a goal and marking it in the sand as trying to achieve net zero. Whether we're LEED Platinum, Well Building certified, we have high aspirations, but ultimately we are trying to create a building that's not about the plaque on the wall, but is actually functional and performs at a higher level than any other multifamily building in Denver. This architecture, which is thoughtful, is not only thoughtful in its appearance, but is also strategically placing elements that shade the building in a way that prevents the solar heat gain in the summer, and also prevents and creates a screen of the wind year round. So we're sort of playing with the architecture. We're playing with the details in a fashion that actually is multi-purpose serving and functions as well as it is beautiful.
That's great to hear. Obviously, the functionality is often more important than the plaque on the building. So that's great that is a focus. And we did have another audience question about the top-down system and whether that's utilized for the parking levels as well, or if that's just for the point towers themselves.
I can answer that. The original plan was to not utilize it for the parking levels, but Charlie Thornton at Thornton Tomasetti spent several weeks over the course of early fall redesigning the structural elements of the parking garage so that can be built in the same method. So the entire building will be built that way. In partial answer to the immediately prior question, the top-down method also provides an enormous amount of sustainability for the city in that the carbon footprint of the construction is roughly half of what it would be for a normally constructed building, both because of time savings, because we will not have people going up and down man hoist on the outside of the building. There will be no tower cranes after the cores are constructed, and the weight of the building is significantly less, so we have less waste, less concrete, and just a generally more environmentally responsible building process.
That's incredible. I mean, you're providing such a great model here, I think, for a well-designed building that provides density of residential on a former surface parking lot. And personally, I really love this 360-degree design concept. I think prioritizing the streetscape and the pedestrian experience is such a boon for this project, especially along Champa, as that really provides such a key connection between other neighborhoods and into kind of the downtown dense core. So with that, Patricia, Karina, Nate, thank you so much. Any last remarks before we move to our next project?
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of Amanda being able to give a real tour of a real building, so I can't wait to get to do that for you guys at some point.
We'll come back. One last, I think, excellent question. When is your next building? Because we'd love to see these throughout downtown.
Well, let's get this one started.
Yeah. That's great. Clearly, there's some
you.
Support for what you're doing here, which is fantastic. And we will bring this group back to tour the building once it is open. We look forward to that. So with that, we are going to make our way to our final project, where in normal times we might all be enjoying a drink together at the Asterisk Event Center. So had we been at the site at Park Ave in Champa, we would have just made our way down Park Ave to where it intersects with Broadway and is home to the Asterisk Event Center. So with that, I'll turn it over to the video, and then we can come back with the project team for question and answer.
My name is Marty Page, and this is my husband, Matt Hand. And my day job is that I focus on repositioning apartments. And so this is a little bit outside my typical day job. But Matt, as he'll mention, is a pastor and really wanted to bring our church into kind of the urban core. And so this was kind of a vision of doing that in a way that didn't saddle the church with a big mortgage. So basically what we decided to do is take this building, which is an old 1920s post office garage, and make it into a for-profit event venue.
We really wanted to be downtown and just kind of, impact the city from the inside out. Part of the vision was not tearing something down. It wasn't starting from scratch with some shiny new thing. It's like take something that's existing and preserve the beauty and the history of it, but renew it and repurpose it and make it better.
So the building is about 15,000 square feet, and for folks who are watching online, it's at the intersection of Park, Broadway, and Arapahoe. So the name Asterisk was really born from the fact that this intersection where we sit forms an asterisk. So the space, the biggest space is a 10,000 square foot kind of main hall. We have the space that we're sitting in right here that is, we call it the Bridal Suite and Green Room. It functions as a kind of conference space. So if someone's having like a gala for a nonprofit and wants to do some sort of board event before or after, they can use this space for it. We have a rooftop area. We have Jubilee Coffee, which is a great coffee shop that I encourage everyone to explore. So this is our main hall, and we can have up to 1,000 people for a standing event in here. It is a large space, so it's really conducive to an event where you can have stuff spread out. What we love about this room is, unlike a lot of hotels and convention spaces, which is where a lot of groups that are bigger than 250 kind of have to go in Denver, is that this is a space that really has some great natural light. So we've got 6 skylights that bring in natural light. We've got all the windows around here. So we have some pre-function space kind of back there that we can show you guys that's locked off from this main hall. So in the lounge, that's really kind of our children's wing for the church. And so it's very colorful, and you can tell that it's really geared toward kids. But from a functionality perspective, we've found that it's a great spot for different large events. It's also a great kind of just lounge area for the caterers. And we've had some different weddings who've wanted to use that as a groom's room. And then kind of where we are here is the rooftop deck, and this is really a space that it's been exciting to see how it gets utilized. This footprint is about 1,500 square feet here, so you've got an elevator that serves it. We've got some cool art that we can show you in the kind of elevator area that Pat Milbury just finished. But really, it's been utilized in lots of different ways. The fact that it's open is just great. We've had some hybrid viewing parties where people have used our main hall to like just really televise programming, but they've had people watch it indoors, and they've had like kind of pre-parties here that have been catered that are, you know, they've just really been utilizing this open area.
Jubilee as a whole started up about almost 5 years ago now in Aurora. Matt and Marty just approached me with some thoughts, ended up just hooking me to get in the neighborhood early. Something that's also kind of like tied into and next to an event center was very appealing. We're gonna have really excellent coffee. Secondarily, we also do in-house toasts, we do in-house breakfast burritos. We partner with Rebel Bread, a local pastry company, and then Third Culture, who does like these mochi donuts and mochi muffins. We've got kombucha and matcha and all the drinks you need for your day.
Shortly after we bought Asterisk, which is over here, the opportunity to acquire this office building came up, and so really this was a strategic acquisition mostly because of the parking. And then I like to kind of joke that this is my first significant art purchase because as you can see, there is a Pat Milbury piece on this building. I've been told, I haven't verified this, that this is the most Instagrammed spot in Denver, including Red Rocks. Also, the building itself is currently office, but the top floor does have a fully built out catering kitchen and shower. Our thought is eventually, once we get into more of a rhythm of having events here, that ultimately we'll utilize the top floor more as like a lounge for other get-ready type stuff. So one reason that we really liked Arapahoe Square as a specific neighborhood is that we feel like it's developing its own character and it's positioned strategically between a lot of other more established neighborhoods.
Part of coming to this area was intentionally to kind of come as learners, where there was a lot that we didn't know about the neighborhood and what was already going on. What are the needs of the community? What's getting served? What's getting dropped? And how can we be a part of all of that?
All right, thanks, Marty and Matt. Do you have anything to add on top of that video before we jump in with some questions?
Nothing from me. Ready for questions.
Okay. So my first question is, you know, you said right off the bat, this is not your typical day job. You know, Matt's a pastor, Marty invests in apartment buildings. What drew you to this site? What drew you to this building? Were you looking in Arapahoe Square? You know, I'd love to hear more about kind of the background, that story of how you got involved.
We were looking in Arapahoe Square. I think just when the rezoning happened and we realized like what an amazing transition this neighborhood could undergo in the next 5 or 10 years, we kind of started thinking in terms of like, if we wait until all those people are there and it's what like we would love to serve, like we're not going to have an opportunity. And so we realized we'd kind of be early adopters and a little bit of risk takers to be there when we got in. But that was kind of the impetus of just, as Marty mentioned on the video, just the opportunity to jump in as learners and just grow with the neighborhood as it kind of takes on its own character.
That's great, thanks. And then let's just talk about what's kind of happened over the past few months. You know, you opened at the end of the year, and I know have still seen, you know, Matt, your church has still been able to host some in-person gatherings at Asterisk. You've seen a lot of community uses. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what those community uses have been over the past few months as you've really, I think, have gotten creative and kind of found ways to use the space in, you know, kind of unprecedented times that we are in?
Yeah, I think we were able to do like 5 or 6 Sundays there before the pandemic shut us down. And Marty had already had the idea, actually on some super cold days in February. We had approached some of our neighbors, the Rescue Mission, St. Francis Center, Colorado Coalition of the Homeless, and other groups like that, and just said, hey, it's bitterly cold. If you need extra space to get folks in, just literally for survival, we have a beautiful building and it's sitting here empty in the middle of the day. And so we had done that a couple times, I want to say, just on some super cold days. And then the pandemic hit and they needed social distanced places to house and to feed people who were experiencing homelessness. And so for about 6 months, we just donated our building, about 10,000 square feet. We have like high-end AVL in the building. So they were watching documentaries and movies. So there was kind of some entertainment and some just normal human aspect of just recognizing them as people who just didn't have a place to be, and trying to keep them safe, giving them medical care in that space, giving them counseling in that space. I think there were 2 to 3 meals a day, hosted for about 400 people on average. And we recently reconverted it back to the event space. And now kind of the numbers have ticked up again where we don't have a bunch of stuff going, but the church, because there is so much space in that one room, we were up to 100. As of today, we're back to 50 that we're allowed to have in that space. But we've had a lot of our medical team has just come and looked and said, hey, we're really proud of what you're doing, because it's thoughtful, it's safe, it's clean, it's healthy. It checks a lot of the right boxes to still have a really beautiful meeting, a really beautiful community gathering, and still be really, really over the top safe with what we're doing. So that's what we're kind of going forward on that model.
That's great. And surely it will ebb and flow and continue to change and evolve as we go forward. But if we put COVID aside and and think about kind of the events industry and, let's call it a normal world, whatever that means, clearly you saw that there was a demand for this type of space in an urban environment. Can you talk a little bit about that, about maybe how the events industry has evolved out of that kind of typical ballroom setting and what people are looking for in more modern events these days?
Sure. So I think we had a number of obstacles during our construction period, and our opening was pushed back a number of times. And one of the challenges with a venue that really targets very large events is that, they book, 1, 2, even 5 years out. And so we really were quite impressed during our lengthy construction period, in which we didn't really have a product to show, at just the response that the events community had to the building. And we were able to really pre-book quite a bit of business even before we were complete. And I think that's a testament to just the need for cool, innovative space that's a nice alternative to your typical kind of hotel ballroom. And so unfortunately we've had to cancel a lot of that pre-booked business. Hopefully we can rebook it post-pandemic. But I do think that the events industry was really excited about it. The rooftop space, kind of in conjunction with the main hall, there are just a lot of creative ways that people have used it.
That's great. And, surely we'll get back to someday where people are booking those events again. I think that type of space will absolutely be in demand, as you said, kind of having that large amount of space within the main hall and then having that great outdoor area as well will certainly be a boon for that particular space. Tell me a little bit more about, again, this was not your day job going into it, about kind of operating an events business. Who are your partners that help you kind of execute on the event side and make this all kind of come to life?
Sure. So we partnered with a group called Blue Eyes Consulting, and we were connected with Blue Eyes because we actually just reached out to some of the event venues that we know and kind of admire, and just asked them for kind of who they'd recommend that we partner with. And coincidentally, a couple of those venues that we reached out to were managed by Blue Eyes. So Blue Eyes is Patty Moser and Amy Lugowski, both of whom kind of got their start probably 25 years ago with the Broncos. And so they have kind of, it's still kind of a relatively small operation, but they have expertise not just in social stuff like bat mitzvahs and weddings, but also in the big corporate galas and nonprofit world. And so that's, they were able to kind of consult up on the front end on kind of how much pre-function space you need, and a lot of storage elements and stuff that, as people who are not event promoters, we wouldn't have thought of. And so they helped us pre-book and just create relationships with all the best in class, photographers and caterers and DJs and, everyone who goes into making these events great.
That's great. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about Jubilee Coffee as well. Did you always envision a coffee shop for that space, and how did you get connected to Jubilee specifically?
So we did want to activate that corner so that we would constantly have someone in the building. Just given the diverse demographic around the neighborhood, we just didn't, and regardless of its location, I hate vacant buildings. And so the idea was, given our use and given the fact that a lot of events are in the evening, although we do have a surprising number of events, when we don't have a pandemic, that are during the day, but really we wanted someone in the building for the majority, just kind of overseeing it. And so we thought that one way of achieving that would bring in a coffee operator. And so I actually, it's from my apartment background, knew the owner of a coffee shop in Aurora, which is Jubilee's other location. And we were just really impressed with the execution of what they had done in a really kind of pioneering spot in Aurora, and thought that that would really lend itself nicely to Arapahoe Square, where the neighborhood is clearly still in transition, but they see the potential and can kind of adapt with us. So we approached them, and the rest is history.
That's great. Well, we wish that we were all toasting with a drink at Asterisk right now on that lovely rooftop, or even within the main hall. Someday we will get back there. We'll go tour Evolve Towers when it's done, and then we'll come over for a drink at Asterisk, if not before then. So we wish we were there. Thank you, Marty and Matt, for joining us. And thank you to all of the development teams, again, from Rocky Mountain PBS, Mortensen, the Evolve Towers team, Marty, Matt, thank you all for being here. And thank you to our attendees, again, for bearing with us with kind of all sorts of changes around this programming. But we really hope that we brought these projects to life for you today, so that you can get excited about when you can visit them in person. We look forward to doing that with you. Just, a quick announcement about our Development Insider Tour series. We will be doing these monthly, focusing on a major project that is transforming our center city. So please keep an eye out for some communication around that future programming. And again, with that, I want to thank everyone for being so flexible and for joining us in a very non-traditional way, but we will probably see you this way next month if you're able to join us. So thank you again, and take care.